Well, how's it going, kids? Welcome back to another Friday Live at 3. What a wonky week I have had. Well, that's not about me. Been kind of a tough week at the Talley house. My wife lost her mom of 94 years old this past Monday, and we laid Miss Kay to rest yesterday. So, been kind of solemn. So, what all did I get accomplished around here? Not a lot. Although I told you I was going to get the YXZ out of here, and I did manage to do that, and I sent it out with its new owner, the manager of the DC, or the director of the DC, just on the other side of that wall. And it successfully made it through a little over 100 miles, and it's got a couple of things that I need to straighten out, like not having a reverse. Evidently, that cable broke that you have to engage. But other than that, he's really happy with it, so I'll get it back in the next couple of weeks. Do a first service on it, finish out a couple of things, add in some gauges, maybe go ahead and put the stickers on it now that it survived its initial run-in, and then send it back out with him. So what did I do? Well, you know me, I had to bring in the next project. Well, it's not a project for here, but just for myself. So brought in one of my toys again to change out the exhaust. I mean, love the S54 engine, but the exhaust system I've got on it just isn't really doing the job. So that's one of the perks of working for Partzilla. Sometime I can sneak in some of my own toys and do a little work on them. All right, kids. So what's new this week? Well, Nathan, I think y'all met, sent me a few clips of a new game that has been developed that's available for all the major formats for, of course, PlayStation and not the Nintendo format, but the Xbox. And it's called Supercross Series 25, Monster Energy Supercross 2025. And you pretty much build up your rider. He's in Partzilla gear, build up your machine, and as you improve, you can go from person to person as you get faster and faster. Now, I haven't played it yet, but I've heard that it is a whole lot of fun, but very challenging. And I'm like, well, you ought to try it in real life. It's much more difficult than sitting here playing with just a controller. Amazing, we've come a long way from an Excite-A-Bike for those people or those kids or adults my age that grew up in the 70s and the 80s. So I know that we're running a contest where you can win a subscription to this new program. You just need to go to Instagram and enter to win. And I believe we're giving that away on May 1st. It doesn't cost you anything to enter. Just go to our Partzilla page at Instagram, enter to win, and have a ball. All right. So as for today, let's swing around, see what questions Hank sent over for me, and then I'll finish out with whatever y'all want to send me today. So let me get to the right tab on my machine. There we go. Matthew, I've been researching removing the wet clutch 27 millimeter nut on a 2009 Yamaha 700 Rhino, and I am unsure if the threads are reversed. The outer clutch shaft nut is normal and loosening by turning counterclockwise. I've seen information showing both directions. Can you please clarify? It's the standard direction. So don't be afraid to go ahead and put some torque on it. There's quite a bit on there to get it to release, but it's just a standard thread. Eddie Bowen, 3320, has a 2001 Yamaha 600. It will not change out at first. Okay. Took the cover off the primary and has a thick grease inside of it. Any ideas? All right, let me make sure we're talking about the right machine here. So I assume we're talking about an older, an 01 Yamaha 600. For some reason in my mind, that was just a CVT clutch, but evidently it is the ATV, the 600, and it won't change out at first. If you pulled off the outside cover and it has a thick grease inside of it, shouldn't that have oil? So I wonder if you've more or less solidified what was supposed to be oil in there. How can you get out of this? Well, you need to try to get that sludge out of there. I would suggest changing the oil, whatever will drain out of it. Fill it back up with just a regular conventional 1030. Running it around just in first gear, get it heated up, drain that, and then do it again. And then by some miracle that loosens up your transmission, then you consider yourself lucky. But it sounds like it's probably seized on the shift shaft through lack of lubrication, and it's probably not going to get better on its own. So I'm afraid you're probably going to split that one open. I forgot about that model. I thought the largest shift type ATV they had was the Big Bear 350 or the 400, but I'd forgotten about that 600. Hopefully I'm right on this. Jerome Myers, I have an 06 CBR 600RR. Headlights come on and cluster lights up. The bike cranks, but won't start over and run. Okay, started after I replaced the front fairings. Any ideas? Yes, I do. This happens a lot. You've got certain safety circuits that will keep the machine from starting up. One of those being a tip-over switch, which just happens to be located inside the front fairing, over on the right, if memory serves. Don't feel bad, that catches a lot of folks. Make sure that it's on there and didn't get left in your old fairing. If so, hopefully you didn't throw it away. You can just plug it in and she'll be good to go. It's basically just a tip-over switch. That's all it is. But more than likely, that is what's going wrong with yours. Icicles Recording Studio. Every 4 or 5 days, my 07 CBR 600 front brakes becomes noticeably spongy from a really strong feel after a good bleeding, with air bubbles coming out of the upper bleeding port near the reservoir. No leaking is identified. This is a big mystery. Can you give me some hints? If my first estimation would be, okay, you've still got air in there somehow or another. But that being said, that doesn't explain it having a really strong feel initially and then that going away. Now, what would explain that happening is the seals and the master starting to break down, and it's not quite getting the pressure out as it should. Or conversely, it could be on the, but most unlikely, it could be on your on the caliper itself. So my next move would probably be to rebuild the master first, and then see what that does, and put it back together, and then bleed it again. If it's still having issues, you may want to consider doing a reverse fill. That's when you actually have your supply of fluid down at the caliper, and you pump it up all the way to the caliper. I mean, not the caliper, the master cylinder itself. A little bit messier to do that, but sometimes that can prove to be the only way. Ask me how I know. Ran into that with that little car behind there. Had a hell of a time getting the clutch to bleed out correctly, but eventually I got it by doing a reverse fill. That's what it took. All right, what else we got? Daniel Reynoso just replaced the clutch and friction plates on a 2007 YFZ 450. Now it's hard to find neutral, and I've also noticed that when shifting down from third, it skips second and goes into first. Wow. Any thoughts? Thank you. As far as finding it difficult to find neutral, that tells me that the clutch is not completely disengaging. I would be curious if you actually had OEM plates in there as well as the friction plates. Maybe your stack height is a little too high and it's not wanting to fully spin on itself, and that's what allows you to change gears in the first place. Simpler explanation: are you sure you have your clutch cable adjusted correctly? If it doesn't have enough slack in there, it's not going to let it disengage all the way, or engage all the way to where you can find that neutral. As far as the skipping from just straight from third to first, that's unusual. That is unusual, but I think it's tied into the fact that that clutch is not engaging and disengaging fully as it should. So I think once you figure that out, the other should resolve. Christopher Babylonia, interesting. We have a 2005 VTX 1800. It sat for several years. Wish you would have told me how many. The battery was replaced and the lights came on and the engine turned, but the engine did not fire. Fresh fuel was in the tank and the kill switch was in the correct position. Any ideas, given that it sat for a few years in a shed? Well, start with your basics. I'd go ahead and pull one of the plugs and see if we're getting fire. And if that's the case, and if you are getting fire, well, shoot, you've already got a plug out, go ahead and do a compression test. Make sure you've got compression. Well, that's 2 out of the 3 that you need. Next, you need an air-fuel mixture, providing that it's not completely stopped up on the air intake, which I kind of doubt it is, but you may want to take a look at the air filter. Then it's going to be down to your fuel. Now, that is a fuel-injected model, but I think I'm going to run into this on the Ninja sitting in front of me that's been sitting for 5 years. More than likely, either your fuel pump and or your injectors are going to be gummed up. Fuel sits that long, it basically turns into a SERP, and fuel pumps, they can't deal with it. Neither can the injectors. So just dumping in fresh fuel is probably not going to straighten it out, especially if she's been sitting for more than 5 years, even though it is a closed system. And that helps a lot. It does not solve all the problems associated with letting a machine set up for too long. Now, who would do that? Well, I'd be guilty of it myself. Like I said, it's sitting right in front of me. All right. Looks like that catches us up for this past week. No, I don't want to buy extended warranty for my car. You wouldn't sell it to me anyway if you knew. Let's see what you've sent Hank over this afternoon. All right, Chance A. Martin asks, does a TRX 450 EXX, okay, have an air fuel mixture screw? My quad is backfiring on downhill decelerating. What could that be? All right, I believe you're referring to a TRX 400EX. And yes, it is going to have an air fuel screw on it, and that could be it. So I'm trying to remember what the factory is on it. I think it's like 1 3/4. I always thought that was a little on the lean side, so I've always gone right at 2 1/4. But you're safe to play 1/4 or half a turn either way to see if this straightens out your backfiring issue. Pete Goslink asks, I have an 06 Goldwing 1800 rear brake locks up and I've replaced the fluid and it still does it. It's set for 5 years. I've got it running very well, 41,000 miles. All right, that's telling me that the more than likely the pistons inside of your rear caliper, they're sticking, because when you push in there, they're going in and they're holding on to that brake disc, but then they're not wanting to relax to let off. So you're probably going to need to pull that apart, clean it, put in. They've got rebuild kits. Put in new seals and the dust covers, and then put in new fluid, and you should be okay. But more than likely, so that's just your calipers hanging up because, well, time does that after a while, and especially with the braking system. That brake fluid is what they call it, hydroscopic. It attracts water, and of course, water and air. Well, that makes rust, and that's probably what you're going to find on the outside of that caliper piston. It's probably got some rust on it, and that's causing it to bind up on the seals themselves. So, go and bite the pull it apart, rebuild it. And that's probably what you're going to find in there. And if I'm right, why don't you send it back, what you found, to our email address, and I'm pretty sure Hank will drop that in the chat where you can shoot it back to us, because I'd like to know. I'll get some feedback when I'm right, and especially if I'm wrong, then I'll correct as necessary. Somebody's just very persistent. Y'all can wait a few minutes. Good grief. Relax. All right, where did we leave off? Vertex Lobster asks, hi, I have a 2020 Super Cub. All right, you're almost getting too new for me, but we'll give it a shot here. Super Cub, a FOB only motorcycle that someone tried to steal. In doing so, they broke open my fairing and tried to hotwire my motorcycle. Now the motorcycle can only start if I touch the wires, but now the wheel lock won't unlock even when touching. How can I unlock the front wheel and get the wires reconnected properly? Oh, and then also the best way to replace both front forks. Lobster, you've got me a little bit here because I'm not really familiar with the 2020 Super Cub. But what I could tell you is that I'll tell you what we'll do. You probably don't want to have to go in and replace your entire wiring harness just for this switch. Let me go in Honda and bring up the schematic for you. See if I can get it isolated down to the wire colors that you're going to need to work with, and just reconnect them. But if you're going to do this, make sure you do it right. Don't just wire nut them together or put in those crimp type connectors. Go and invest in a soldering iron, some solder, and some heat shrink, and let's do a neat job. I've got a couple of videos out there showing you how to do it, where I show how to repair, I think it's a BMW harness that I cut on purpose and then re-splice back together. But that's the better way to do it. If you would, go ahead and send me an email to that Ask Partzilla address. That way I can look up the information, shoot it to you, and then we can walk you through this. As to the best way to replace the front forks, I'll have to go look. Never done one of those before. But if there's an easy way to do it, I will look into it and find out for you. Sound like a plan? All right. Looks like we've got a few more. Ryan Brooks asks, he's got an 08 KFX 450R. It ran for a few days, popped a wheelie, and then shut off. Wouldn't start after that, but would crank. Next day, it started right up. Any ideas? Ryan, I don't think it's got a turnover or a flip over switch, but it's possible that it does. One of those safety switches that, cuts it if it ends up, on its side or upside down. That would explain it. Looks like you may have gone past its limit, maybe triggered it, and then it reset itself. Another one of those. Hank, make a note of that one, because now I'm curious to see if it has a flip over switch on it. I'm betting that it does. That's what it sounds like anyway. Very seldom do things just self-rectify unless they're designed to do so. JWall69 asks, I have an 07 GSXR 600. It's starting ticking on the top end, but only when it warms up fully. I have a manual cam chain tensioner to put on it, but I also think the oil pressure relief valve. It could be either. I'd be curious to know what viscosity oil that you're running in it. And maybe thinning out a little too much for it. But it also may not be getting quite enough pressure if that oil pressure relief valve is not functioning like it's supposed to. So I think you're going down the right path. But I would suggest before you go digging into it, if you're running a 1030, go ahead and switch it over to a 1040 and see if that straightens it up a little bit. Cole Slaw Junkie asks, how can I adjust the gear lever height on a 2022 S1000RR? All right, that's a Beamer, isn't it? In 2022, that's going to be a little too new for me. So Cole, let me, if it is a BMW, go ahead and drop that in the chat so I can find your machine, and I'll see if there is a way to adjust the gear lever height on that. Norby 1783 asks, know of any fixes for the noise out of a prop shaft on a 17 Crew Ranger? Already have an upgraded carrier bearing. We had a Ranger, a Crew in here. It was an 800, and it was having a prop shaft issue, and we just replaced the whole damn thing, which also came with the carrier in the middle. The noise that we were hearing was actually some slop on the spline off the U-joint that was going into the rear differential. And once we replaced that slop went away. We were kind of rolling the dice, so to speak, because normally if your splines on this end are worn, they're also, the splines themselves are going to be worn. But just replacing the prop shaft itself, it had enough of a bite to where it wouldn't growl, if I remember correctly, the noise it was making. So that would be the only suggestion I have, is you're probably going to have to replace the whole prop shaft. In my personal opinion, especially on the, I'd say 2012 to around 2018 Polaris Cruise, especially, the prop shafts were a little weak, in my opinion. But hey, I wasn't in on that design conversation. Would have been better if I were. Phil Myers 2013 asks, Polaris Razor 900. It jumped. Starter won't turn motor over. The start clutch slips. I've replaced the starter gear, and the one-way clutch. It will try to turn over with the spark plugs removed. All right. Basic question here. Are we absolutely certain that your battery is in good shape? Second, because it'll evidently spin over once you relieve any type of torque on it by taking out the or torque requirement by taking out the spark plugs. Now, the place I would look, and you may think I'm crazy, but look at the negative side cable that's going to the chassis ground from the engine. I would pretty much bet that maybe it has some corrosion built up, and it's causing that that starter not to get its full amount of juice coming in on the positive side. So take a look at your negative side. It may look fine. Go ahead and unbolt it, look behind it, clean that connection on both surfaces, and then bolt it back together and see what she does. I bet you that'll probably be it. My gut tells me that's going to be it. Let us know if I am right. Applejacks 971 asks, how do you decide what machines to use and work on your YouTube videos? No, I just make it. No, there's actually a whole team of us. There's not just me, there's not just me. There's several people on the multimedia team, and we meet more or less once every week, and we discuss what projects that we're working on, how they're going, what videos we want to do on that particular machine, and then what machines we want to work on next. And a lot of that is determined by the research we do from our sales history. We'll bring in machines that we typically sell a lot of parts for, and that's not to sell you more parts. Well, kind of is, but the main reason is there's only so many machines I can work on in any given time frame, and we want to hit the ones that get worked on the most, and that's what we aim for. So, long story short, a lot of it's that, and sometimes I just pick out something I like because I want to play with it. That simple. But for the most part, it's the multimedia team, and we come to a conclusion as a group, and then go from there. Richard Morgan asks, I've got a Kubata Z121S mower, having surging issues with it. I've replaced the fuel pump and cleaned the carburetor. I've ordered a new carb, I would assume he's saying, but haven't put it on yet. What do you think is the culprit? Not familiar with a 2000 or a Kubota Z121 mower, but hey, I'll give this a shot. If it's surging like that, that usually indicates a flow or a delivery problem of the fuel just ebbing and flowing, so to speak. And if you've ordered a new carb, more than likely that's going to take care of the issue it's having internally. When a carburetor like that surges, a lot of times it's on the pickup side of your main jet going into your float bowl. And if that float level, or if that level is not at the right height, it'll cause it to surge back and forth. So more than likely, when you replace that carburetor, it's going to straighten out that problem. All right. Grammy Sweet, how's it going? Hey, John, hope all is well with the family. I won't hit on you today, but you're still the looker. Oh, boy. Keep being the most amazing fixture on YouTube. Well, Grammy, I appreciate that. Don't, long as Gail doesn't find your address, I think you're safe. Mr. Zarzir asks, hey, my Alba Racing bead locks won't stop leaking air no matter what. Do you have any idea of how to fix that? I tried a torque wrench, lubing the bead. Happy to have your opinion. Did they ever seal up correctly? Because the bead locks that I've installed around here, a couple of different ones. I think the last one I did was the Outlander, and before that it was the YXZ. There wasn't a problem with it, because man, when that thing it tightens down, it's not going to let go. I would ask, did you go through the right sequence as far as, tightening down the bead locks? Because you just don't go from 1 to 1 in just one round. There's a sequence that you go through, and tell you what, go to our playlist on the Outlander, and I actually showed how to mount up a tire and then bring down the bead locks. Use my procedure and see if that works for you on the Alba rim locks. It shouldn't matter. I mean, Alba's a quality company, and they source out some good equipment. So I'm not blaming you, but I'm saying at least try my technique and make sure that's not the issue before you throw in the towel. Because bead locks are great, but they can be a bit time consuming to get them in there and get them right, especially to get them centered. That's just the nature of the beast. But go take a peek at that. And Hank, if you've got enough time, drop it in there to where you can go straight to that particular video. Wayne Porky asks, have you ever changed clutches on an 01 to 2010 GL 1800 by removing the gas tank? No, I haven't. I mean, I would imagine you could do it like that. I did the plates on our 07, and it wasn't that bad. I mean, honestly, and Tracy did a fantastic job of catching the process. The only thing that I did remove was the starter, and that made it easier, not only to get to everything, but to get to those bolts, or she could get to the camber angles a lot better because it was not in the way. But it was that and the exhaust that the exhaust had to be pulled. On our particular wing, it was a pain in the butt because this one had a tow kit for a trailer. So that made my particular wing more difficult, but hopefully yours doesn't have that set up on it. All right. Well, Hank is telling me wrap. So I guess that's going to do it for us this week. Wow, good timing. 3:30 on the nose. Well, everybody, if you would head over to our Instagram page and check out the Monster Energy Supercross AMA 2025 video game. I think they've got a few demos set up over there, and you can at least check it out. And then we're giving away the game, which I'm assume would be a subscription or login, and that'll be available on Xbox or PlayStation or whatever format that you may be playing on. All right, everybody, thanks for coming by, sending in some great questions. Makes it just fly by, and that makes it a lot of fun for me. So everybody have a great weekend, a great week, and we will get together next week at Friday at 3:00 and do it all again. And anything I said I was going to do some research on, I will lead off with those, providing, of course, that Hank jotted down those and drop some on me soon enough to do the research. But I'm sure he will. If anybody fails, it'll be me. Y'all have a great weekend. Take care.